All right, if you're coming into this video and podcast right now, I need you to get your energy up because we got the quote-unquote, the big game. The Super Bowl is coming your way, and we're better to get smacked around with some information. Now, there's a chance that you're somebody who doesn't play a lot of DFS. There's a chance that you're somebody that doesn't bet a lot, and that's okay. But I know a lot of you're those people. You're part of the community. But let's welcome in right now, on the other end of this screen, the person that's just trying to get in for the Super Bowl, the big prize pools. Maybe you got a free entry. Maybe you got a ticket. Maybe your buddy or your cousin or your friend or your aunt, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your brother, whatever you got going on, told you, yo, play some Draftkings. Yo, check out YouTube. That guy, Vetri. What's going on? I appreciate you being here. We're going to break down this Super Bowl slate. We're going to break it down in a pretty major way. We're going to, as you can see right now, Patrick Mahomes is on the screen. He's the most expensive player on Draftkings. We're going to talk about Draftkings and Super Draft, and we're going to scroll down. So we're going to keep you on the edge of that seat you got there. We're going to be scrolling down through each player, and we're going from Patrick Mahomes all the way to the backup tight end that doesn't run any routes, basically. Spoiler alert, for the Kansas City Chiefs. No, not Travis Kelce. That's a totally different spectrum of tight ends in terms of production on offense. We're talking about Nick Keizer. So yes, you're going to get everything here. You're going to get smacked around as much as possible here and all the knowledge that you need to be making some educated decisions from a content standpoint to let you know about the rest of the week if you're watching this video. Friday, we're going to have a final thoughts. So I'm recording this on a Wednesday, right? So maybe you're watching this on Sunday. That's great. Watch it. Then watch the Friday video as well because that's going to be the final thoughts. That's where I'm really going to be leveraging even more ownership and things of that nature. As the week goes on and we get more ownership kind of percentage, ownership projections, which is going to be very important if you want to leverage ownership for a massive slate where just one game, that's going to be big, right? How much is this guy owned? Well, if he's owned at 50% and a guy that's projected pretty close to him is only owned at 25%, half the field has him, there's much more upside in playing that guy. So if he does well or just scores a half a point more than the other guy, you're going to be jumping a lot more people in this showdown contest. Game theory matters a lot. Leaving money on the table is going to matter a lot. And just trying to get away from optimal builds as much as you can, whether that is leaving money on the table or pivoting because of ownership, is going to be very important. So we'll talk about that today, but we'll also break down more into that on Friday. And then Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, I guess, I will be live. So I'll be live up until the lock of the Super Bowl. We'll probably be live for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So be sure to have that notification bell turned on this channel. And while you're here, right, while you're here right now, if you're giving me a second of your time, I know this is your time to relax, kicking back, relaxing, maxing all cool. Please do hit that like button and the subscribe button. It's popping up on the YouTube version. If you're listening on the podcast, the subscribe button really means a lot to me. So thank you. Going to be taking this time during the week. On Friday as well, we'll be having around noon a live stream, which you go watch after the fact if you can't tune in. Me and Dylan Bird, who comes on this channel somewhat often, are going to be talking about player props and things like that. So if you also want the, not just the DFS side, but the betting side and the prop side, which is a massive, massive pull for the Super Bowl. I get that, the most bet on event. Yes, be sure to check that out. You can either watch it live at noon to about 1. Maybe we'll go a little bit longer, answering some questions as well in there in the chat. And then you can watch it after the fact. So that's the Super Bowl content. We got a lot of schmack you around with, like I said. A lot of, yo, make sure you're paying attention because this knowledge is coming your way right now. Hey, how you doing? Why don't we break down into this slate? Why don't we break down into it right now? Again, we're going to be going through the salaries, the most expensive guy, and then we're going to be going down. I'll be giving you my interest as of Wednesday. We'll be giving you some analysis in terms of their matchups, in terms of what they've been doing in the postseason and this season. I have my projections and rankings and ownership, which are going to be a very important tool for you. Down below on Patreon, we can reference some of those, but if you want to follow them, down below on Patreon, patreon.com/Sal_Vetri_. And there's other sports on there as well. MMA, NBA every single day, PGA every single week. So there's a lot of other stuff that you can take advantage of, not just this 1 week of the NFL. I get that. There's only 1 week left. So buckle up, you ladies, you gentlemen, you fellas, and get your energy up. Get your big energy up. That lightning bolt in the top left corner of the screen on YouTube, that logo with the S, that's a lightning bolt for your big energy. So get yourself up. Let's get it popping. Let's get into this one right now, starting with Mr. Patrick Mahomes at $12,000. And I'll slide over so you can see the analysis. Don't worry, Sal, it's half cut off on YouTube. No, don't worry. Here we go. Ready? Mr. Patrick Mahomes. He's a yes for me early on in the week. Spoiler alert, but he is the highest projected player for me. Highest price, it's usually going to be the case. Now, normally on showdowns, I don't want to be playing these $12,000 plus quarterbacks. And Mahomes just got there, right? They put him at a point where you can play him as much as you want. I'm currently projecting him early on in the week for 72% ownership. That is a fucking lot. So if you want to get different on the slate, you just don't play Patrick Mahomes and bam, 70% of the field doesn't have the same lineup as you. That was pretty quick just from one guy. So there's a lot of leverage here. On Friday, he might become a no or a maybe for me, depending on how I want to play the slate. And there's opportunity costs in playing him, right? Now, he's my highest projected player, above 28 fantasy points. The only guy that high. He's projected for like 5 more points than anybody else, but he's a lot more expensive than anybody else. But again, if Tom Brady goes out there this week and scores 25 and Mahomes is scoring 26, 27, well, there's a really good chance that unless nobody else gets there and both quarterbacks are in the winning lineup, that you don't need Patrick Mahomes at his price point because you have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce expensive. You have some of these Tampa Bay wide receivers in that upper to mid 8K range. So Mahomes right now is a yes for me, but I want to see how this ownership goes. If it's going to stay around 70%, there's a good chance that he starts to become a leverage piece away because, yes, he's going to be a very strong play. Yes, you could probably put him down. And this toe injury, they're saying he's close to 100%. I think it's a little bit smoke and in my opinion. I think the rushing and the mobility is still not going to be there as much for him. We'll kind of see what that's looking like early in the first half because we got to see that last year in the Super Bowl and the postseason. He was running a decent amount. Now this toe injury has been isolating that over the last game or so. But he will have a negative 20% pass blocking advantage versus Tampa Bay's regular season number 8 pass rush. Now in the postseason so far, it's basically been 6 quarters because he had to come out for a game. They had the bye week. 73.5% completion percentage, just bonkers. 8.5 yards per attempt, very, very good, close to elite status, and 580 yards in just 6 quarters. Now his player prop for this game is 326 passing yards. So that's obviously going to project into or factor into my projection for him, again, over 28 points. And this is the funny thing. His touchdown prop, I think it must be just some sort of something that DK Sportsbook is trying to do. I'm surprised it hasn't moved to 2 yet, but they're going to just be taking everybody's money on this one. His touchdown prop is only 1.5 passing touchdowns, but you want to know the juice on that? If you're not familiar, it's minus 455. That means you have to bet $455 to just win $100. So normally when this happens, when the juice is that big, they just move the line. They move it to like 2 touchdowns or 2.5 touchdowns, so it balances out a little bit. But the sports books, they're smart. They're going to say, oh, everybody's going to continue to bet on this because a lot of casual bettors don't understand that the juice is minus 455. So what that basically means is you kind of now have to win. If you win this bet, you have to win like 4 or 5 bets to actually equate to one win because again, you have to bet $455 to win $100. But that $455, you can go and put it on 4 other bets where it's minus 110 odds, and there you go. You got the same outcome. So the sports books are smart. They're trying to take casuals' monies. They're not moving the line, but that's not good for you, right? Honestly, taking the other side of this bet is not good. Trying to think that he's only going to throw for 1 touchdown in this game, that's not a good bet either. So it's just a stay away bet for me, but it's just to show you how much confidence there is in him going for over 1.5 touchdowns. Now you hearing that number, you're probably like, yeah, I think he's going to do that. Yes, based on the sports book, minus 455, some of the highest juice I've ever seen on a touchdown prop, that is also the case. So Patrick Mahomes is a yes for us early on, highest projected guy, highest owned guy, and this is going to be a case where if he starts to get into like the mid 60s, let's say 64% owned, then I start to like him. Now he's actually at a point where I think he's a quality play. You want to play 100% of him, fine. But if he stays at 70 to 75%, come Friday, there's a really good chance you see him move to an X for me instead of a Y, which is a maybe or maybe even a no, and we just get different on the slate by just fading Patrick Mahomes. All right, fellas, next fella up is going to be Mr. Travis Kelce at $11,000. So a pretty big price jump or price reduction there from $11,000. And here's the thing, a positive 69% matchup for Mr. He's a yes for me as well, for Mr. Travis Kelce against Devin White. It's going to be a tough matchup, right? So you have, here's the thing with Travis Kelce though, the way that he is played in this offense, he's just insane, right? We know that he's like a just oversized wide receiver, but the way that he is thrown open, it's like Aaron Rodgers levels with Patrick Mahomes, like Aaron Rodgers levels with Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers levels in the past early on in his career with guys like Greg Jennings and Donald Driver for a season. When these quarterbacks are clicking and they have that much of a chemistry, they are just throwing guys open. Rodgers with Jordy Nelson might actually be the best example, just throwing guys open, back shoulders, but for Travis Kelce, it's in the middle of the field, right? He has 2 ways that he can go, and for the most part, he's basically just running a lot of the times option routes. He's either curling, and that ball is pretty much on his numbers the second he turns around, which is you just can't defend that, or he's slicing into the middle of the field. And when that's the case, it's just so hard when you're getting thrown open so quickly. Like the timing is so beautiful with these guys. That's why you can have a historic tight end career. So yes, Devin White is a beautifully fantastic linebacker, but it's really tough to just guard this. And Travis Kelce, obviously being a tight end, has 23 pounds over Devin White and all the other athletic and fast Tampa Bay linebackers. White is allowing 1.33 yards per cover. So White's been really good this year, especially against run, tackling in general, but against quality tight ends, he has struggled. And Kelce in the postseason, 21 receptions on 24 targets, just insane, averaging 3.29 yards per route run, which basically during the regular season would be like tied with Devontae Adams to lead the NFL, and he has right now 24 targets in the postseason. That's just through 2 games, not 3 games, so keep that in mind, and he's averaging over 10 receptions per game. His reception prop in this game is 8.5, and if you take the under, you're actually getting plus money on that, so that's going to be something interesting to watch. How does Tampa Bay try and stop this team? Well, you're going to try and bracket Tyreek. You can't really do that when he's in the slot, right, where he is over 50% of the time. Are you going to try and double team a tight end in the middle of the field? That honestly sounds like a pretty terrible idea when they have a Tyreek Hill on the outside, when they have a McCole Hartman on the outside, when Sammy Watkins potentially can be returning this week. And that's the whole point of this Chiefs offense. You cannot take away when they have 2 elite weapons and then very quality weapons after that. You cannot take them away by double teaming them because then you're leaving other guys everywhere else one-on-one in the middle of the field with Kelce, one-on-one on the outside with Tyreek or Sammy Watkins or Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hartman, or guys out of the backfield that can catch passes, both Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You can't do it. So you can't. People can say, oh, they're going to bracket and give double team. No, you can't put 4 guys on 2 guys. That's not how this works in the NFL today. There's other athletes on the field. So Kelce is a yes for me, and I don't have him currently ranked out as good of a play as Patrick Mahomes. You can check all this stuff on my rankings, all my projections, and all that down below. But I do have Kelce as an above average play on this slate. Now you'd be saying, what do you mean above average? He's projected out so highly. Yeah, he's projected out really highly, but I'm factoring in all the point per dollar, right? If there's a guy in the 4K range, I don't have him projected for as many points as Kelce, but based on his price point, he might be a better bang for your buck if that makes sense. Next up, we get another price drop of $600. So now you're getting a 16.5% $1,500 difference between Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, and arguably Tyreek Hill's ceiling, because he's a wide receiver, is much higher than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you saw it in the last game against Tampa, where he went for, yes, count him, 200 yards in the first quarter. Not the first half, no. With the first quarter, with time on the clock still, he went for 200 yards. He's going to have a positive 58% matchup versus Murphy Bunting. Hill's going to be in the slot 58% of the time. So again, you can't really double team the slot, right? And that's actually a terrible idea if you're going to double team the slot with Travis Kelce on the other side and you can put out wide as a wide receiver. And then you have 20% of the time on the left side and about 19 to 20% of the time on the right side of the field. Now you had Kelce looking fantastic in the postseason so far. Tyreek Hill said, hold my beer. 3.71 yards per route run so far this season, which is an efficiency metric for wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. That would have led the NFL by a wide margin during the regular season. So far, he has a team-leading 76 routes run in the playoffs through 2 games. He has 17 receptions, 282 yards on 21 targets. Tyreek Hill, I prefer Travis Kelce right now to Tyreek Hill. The ceiling on Tyreek Hill is much higher. It's in the 40s, when Travis Kelce's can definitely get you to the 40s, of course, but as easy, right? As easy as it can get there for Tyreek Hill, it can get there on 5 or 6 targets. Kelce probably needs that 8 to 10 targets unless he's just having a 3-touchdown game, which then you can say that for anybody. So I'll prefer right now Kelce to Tyreek Hill, even with the price difference factored into that. But now let's start to get into some of these Tampa Bay guys as we hit into the final guy in the 10K range, Tom Brady. Before we get into it, I'll let you know that this video is sponsored by SuperDraft. You can see their logo up above if you're watching on the YouTube version. But what SuperDraft is a multiplier format. So you get fantasy points for your guys always, but then you get a multiplier that you multiply that by. So for example, Patrick Mahomes, if he scores 25 points in the Super Bowl, Draftkings points, well, you multiply that by 1, so he gets 25 points. But, and this is a big old booty. Let's say you get a guy like Travis Kelce to go out there and score 22 points, right? 22 points. He's going to end up scoring around 29 because he has a 1.3x multiplier. So right now, Travis Kelce is my number 1 super draft play in the slate. He looks fantastic. It's hard to get away from him over there. So it's a multiplier format, and they're doing a couple of promotions for the Super Bowl. First of all, if you sign up right now, there's a nice mobile app. It's a fun way to play. They have a ton of massive contests, a $300,000 to first contest with $1 million in prizes, a bunch of other contests that I have some free tickets for you today, the viewer of the show. So here you go. If you use the code SAL when you sign up, that is SAL, they will give you a free money bonus, a slow drip format, up to $500 Rooskies. So $500, right? There you go. Right away, you just got a nice promotion. But they're also giving away 20 tickets to their contest totally free. This is the way that you get in. I'll put a link in the description to my podcast on Apple or Stitch or whatever it might be. All you have to do is leave a review, a 5-star rating and review on my podcast version. Maybe you're listening there right now. It's called The Sal Vetri Show. And all that takes is basically 30 seconds. You open the app, you click the 5 stars, and you write, hey, this show is good. You do that, and then you screenshot and you send it to me. Either send it to me on Twitter in DMs or at me on Twitter. Send it to me via my business email on my Twitter, vetrimedia19@gmail.com. You send that to me with your super draft name. Since you signed up, you made an account. All you have to do, send me that with your super draft name, and you will be entered into win. Now, there's 20 tickets. So normally some of these contests are like, oh, 1 ticket, and you're like, I'm not going to win that one, right? But there's 20 tickets. I can share with you right now, as of Wednesday, I've had about 10 people send me this. So I just got 10 people. They're going to get those tickets as of right now. If only 8 more people send me it, everybody gets a ticket, and I got 2 left over for some people to maybe get 2 tickets, right? So maybe we get 30 people, but you're still going to have a pretty damn good chance. So it's a pretty big offer. 20 tickets they're giving away for the Super Bowl and that deposit bonus. Again, promo code SAL, S-A-L, gets you the deposit bonus, and then screenshotting your review on the podcast version and sending it to me gets you a very good chance at winning a free ticket for the Super Bowl. No better way, right? Even if it's your first time playing and you don't want to be spending money on Super Draft, you don't want to be doing this, bang, you just got a free ticket. So I know. You're welcome, fellas. I'm looking for the best offers out here possible for the community in terms of plugs and things like that when we have some sponsors for the show. Super Draft has been fantastic to us we're about a month away from being partners for a year. So one of my longest lasting partnerships. Very excited for that. Very excited that they saw the potential in our audience and our community and they want to value that. So yes, thank you Super Draft for sponsoring the Super Bowl video. Now it's Thomas Brady. Now Tom Brady at $10,000 is probably the wild card on this slate, and we can say that maybe about a couple guys, but because of the fact that he's $2,000 less than Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't have to score 26, 27. Like if Mahomes scores 26 in this game, that's a good score for $12,000, but if Brady's going out there and scoring 25, well, Brady for $2,000 less is the far better play, right? You have to factor in the price point. And there's a chance as the week goes on that I say, you know what? I might want to be taking 1 or 2 of these weapons in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Right now, again, I prefer Travis Kelce both on Super Draft as my top play and also slightly ahead of Tyreek right now for DraftKings. I might take these guys and pair them up with Tom Brady, right? We might pair them up with Tom Brady and run it back that way. Let's put somebody in the captain spot. Let's put a Tom Brady in our lineups with one of his pass catchers in the captain spot, get the guys on the other side to run it back with, and then all we have to bank on is that these guys, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, have their big games in the 20s or 30s for DraftKings points, but then Tom Brady just outscores or gets very close to Mahomes. That's it. The second that happens, a $2,000 price difference allows us to get different elsewhere, and just by playing Tom Brady, who I currently have Tom Brady, and my projections on Patreon's down below, I have him projected right now ownership-wise for around 55% ownership. So it's not a massive difference, but it's about a 15 to 20% difference from Patrick Mahomes. That's a pretty decent leverage pivot off of that and allows you to get different with your lineups. Now, Brady's going to have a positive pass blocking advantage. He's had a very good protection rate this year, the number 9 protection rate so far this season, and he has a positive 16% pass blocking advantage versus KC's just number 22 pass rush. And now he has a nice yardage prop. This is a high total game, 295.5 225 yardage over under prop. Now, if he hits the over, it's probably going to go over 300 unless you get really unlucky with those couple 3 yards, 4 yards in between, and there's another bonus for you. So the bonus is very closely projected into this one. His over under prop is 2.5 touchdowns. Now it's plus 125 for the over, meaning that it's unlikely that he goes for 3 touchdowns, but not totally unlikely, right? It's like a 45% chance he goes for 3 touchdowns here. But having 2 passing touchdowns at $10,000, that's fine as well. Now in 2021, he led the NFL in air yards. He was number 3 in yardage, and again, he had that number 10 protection rate. Tom Brady is the wild card here. Tom Brady did not look good really so far at all in the playoffs. Not at all. Now he's going to get to go home to Tampa, where it's much warmer than the places he's had to be playing in Washington, in Green Bay, right? In some of these places he had to be playing in and going in to get some wins. He has not looked all that great. Now he actually looked decent and got the QB sneak at the end against New Orleans, which kind of saved the day a little bit, but still didn't have the yardage there. He has not looked good overall. Is this the game? Is this the high total game? And if you assume that the Chiefs do get out to a lead here, Brady playing from behind at $10,000. Yes, right now I have Patrick Mahomes in my projections and my tools ranking out as the better quarterback play today, but I also have him for 20% just projection-wise, but I also have him for 20% higher ownership or so, and that's where Tom Brady starts to become in play. Tom Brady for me right now is my number 8 overall play, but that's factoring in some guys that I don't really have much interest in, like the kickers on this slate. So Tom Brady is somebody that could potentially draw a little bit more interest from me as the week goes on, especially because of that price difference. Let's scroll down now so we can start to get to some of the weapons. The top 2 weapons for Mr. Tom Brady are going to be Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on this slate. I have a lot of interest in Chris Godwin, and I have some interest in Mike Evans. He's not out of play for me at the $400 price difference. Currently, right now, I will be preferring Chris Godwin. Now let's look into a breakdown of these guys. So again, Mike Evans is a maybe for me, somebody that's definitely going to be in play as of right now. I think the ownership on these guys comes in pretty similar. I currently am going to be having Chris Godwin and Mike Evans separated by just about 4 or 5% ownership difference. If you want to see who's higher owned, you can check down below on Patreon. But Godwin is going to be that yes on the screen. He's going to have a positive 47% matchup versus Snead. Snead has been injured. Snead has been banged up, but he has been cleared and ready to play for this game. Snead's in the slot over 50% of the time, exactly at 53%. It's a Godwin at 66% of the time. So that's good to see. Now, Godwin in the playoffs has been great. Now, he had a case of the dropsies. So even if you factor out some of those drops that he had early on in the playoffs, he'd be looking even better right now, right? 14 catches, 223 yards on the number 1 ranked overall 27 targets so far in the postseason out of anybody right now on this team, and 108 routes is tied for the team high. Now, last time that he faced this team, they were playing from behind. They're down to 3 scores pretty much early on in that game against Kansas City in week 12, but he did have 8 catches, 97 yards on 9 targets, just missed that 100-yard bonus on DraftKings. So what are you getting here? You're getting the number 1. Now, it's just 1 game, so it's not like there's 5 teams playing or 5 games, but it's the number 1 matchup advantage in this game for any wide receiver. Now, if you just go 6 to 8 wide receivers deep, Godwin's matchup in the slot, his size matchup, his skill, his speed, his ability to separate is going to be the number 1 matchup against Snead. Now, Snead hasn't been bad by any means. It's just that he's kind of there in the slot. He's not fantastic. He's not elite. They've had Tyrann Mathieu sometimes go into the slot, but now they feel secure about Snead being in there. This is going to be one of the biggest matchup advantages for Tampa Bay to take advantage of, and especially if they're playing from behind, you might see Godwin in this game start to approach. I like his over props. I don't like a lot of over props this week because they're all going to be inflated upwards, but you can see it like an 8 to 10 reception game out of Godwin in this spot because he's the one that they can work through pretty nicely. So he's going to be the yes for me. I've been projected for more points by a decent amount over Evans. Evans does have a good matchup as well. Breeland's been good this year, allowing just 0.9 yards per cover route, so that's the tougher spot, but still a good matchup, a positive 32% matchup because he has 6 inches and 36 pounds over Mr. Breeland. Now in the playoffs, yeah, he's tied for the team high with 108 routes run so far this year with Godwin in the playoffs. He's had 10 catches on 20 targets. Now a couple of those were his fault. There's like 1 or 2 balls last week against the Packers you can blame on Evans, probably at least one of them a big play down the sideline, but a lot of these shots that he's getting are deep down the sideline, but only a 50% completion rate during the postseason is a little bit concerning there. Brady's overthrown him a couple times. One led to a pick last week against the Packers. So some concerns there as Brady's been somewhat inaccurate and a higher catch percentage during the regular season out of Godwin in the slot. But again, you get the big play upside. In week 12, he wasn't fantastic. He actually got somewhat shut down by Breeland and Carlton Davis. He had 3 catches on 9 targets. So that's not great, right? Just a 33% completion percentage there, but 50 yards, and then he had the 2 touchdowns. The upside for Evans is that he's just such a big body and has such a massive size advantage over any of these guys that in the red zone, yes, Gronk will be out there and be a size mismatch, but probably the number 1 option is going to continue to be one of the top 5 red zone guys in the NFL this year, Mike Evans. Now we can start to get into a couple of the running backs, and we can also touch on Antonio Brown and where his health status is at. Now, none of these guys are priorities for me, but they're all currently in a player pool. We can start with Leonard Fournette, then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then we can get into Antonio Brown. Now, Leonard Fournette has had 1 game without Ronald Jones, look great, and 2 games with Ronald Jones, and he's continued to look great and see very similar opportunities. He's going to have a positive 41% run blocking advantage against the number 23 ranked Kansas City run defense. Now, so far in these playoffs, he's had 48 carries on the ground, and he's averaged 4.4 yards per carry, 211 yards and 2 tutties. 8 evaded tackles is good to see, right? So it's not just him getting a bunch of usage. He's actually evading some tackles. He's 3rd on this team, only behind right now Evans and Godwin with 81 routes run, and he's had 17 targets in the postseason and 14 receptions. That's fantastic. But here's the thing. You might be saying, oh, yeah, but there was a game without Ronald Jones that first game. Okay, in the 2 games with Ronald Jones, he's still averaging 21 opportunities opportunities per game. That is absolutely crazy. He's seen 42 opportunities in the last 2 games. You want to know why the big difference is? Because Ronald Jones has ran like 10 routes in the last 2 weeks, and you've had over 40 routes from in the last 2 weeks for Leonard Fournette. The passing game is getting him the upside, and I don't see that changing all that much this week. I don't see them getting involved. LaShawn McCoy, who says that he's going to maybe retire after this game. I don't see them getting involved or maybe even activating the rookie Keyshawn Vaughn, and I don't see them getting involved Ronald Jones, who's been one of the worst efficiency pass-catching running backs, and also you can just put in there, he drops the ball a lot as well. Top 3 in that department for running backs during the season. I don't see them getting him involved. So Fournette's just going to be on the field more, especially if they're trailing. So yes, Fournette is a higher price point, and don't get me wrong, we're going to talk about Ronald Jones. There's a lot of upside in playing Ronald Jones on the slate from a leverage standpoint, but Leonard Fournette is going to be standing out as a pretty quality play. The only issue with Leonard Fournette is his price point of $7,800. So I have him as a maybe. I actually lean closer to a no than a yes because I want to be paying up for these studs on the slate. These guys who can get me 30 or 40 points, the Travis Kelce's, the Mahomes, the Tyreek Hills, and even the Godwins and the Evans. I want to be paying up for some of the studs on the slate. So this $7,800 price tag is a little bit restrictive, especially with the current ownership that I have on him that I thought maybe he'll come in at like 18, 20%. He's coming in a decent amount higher than that right now. Next up, you can see Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's going to have a positive run blocking advantage. The concern is just what is his usage. Last week he returns. It was his first time playing in a couple of weeks, like a month to a month and a half. He only sees 6 attempts on the ground, 7 overall yards and a touchdown, right? That goal line touchdown ended up getting him at least a decent game for you. But here's the thing. He played 32 snaps. It wasn't like he was limited. He played 32 snaps to Williams' 30 snaps. So he actually outsnapped him. It was basically like a 52 to 48% snap difference. He ran 19 routes. So it wasn't the full-on elite workload on the ground, right? He only saw 1 target, so 7 opportunities, and it was basically a split workload. Le'Veon Bell did not play last week. You can expect if Bell, he's optimistic to play in this game. If he sees like 1 to 3 touches, 0 to 3 touches is probably a better number there, 0 to 2 even, then that cuts in a little bit more here. But yeah, I mean, if people are going to say, the workload wasn't there for Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week, well, the ownership's going to be lower on him, but the workload was there. He actually played more snaps. He just didn't get the touches. Does that have to do something just with his conditioning? I think probably a little bit there. Now he's had 2 weeks to rest even more. I think that the first round rookie running back is probably going to see more touches this week. Now it could still be a 50-50 split in terms of the snaps, but maybe the touches start to balance out. Maybe the touches start to go 10 touches for each of these guys, and that's where the upside starts to come in. So I think that there's some sneaky upside for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I don't think will be as owned as some of these other running backs and some of these other guys in this price range. Again, the problem comes in that he is $7,000, and that right now you do have Williams coming in on the slate at a pretty decent price tag of $5,200. So the price difference on Darrell Williams at this point, they're saying, okay, for an $1,800 difference, are you that confident in paying for Clyde Edwards-Helaire that he's going to be taking over the majority of the workload in this game? And my quick answer to that, especially with this tough matchup, is no. So again, that's why he's a maybe and not a yes. Now Antonio Brown is up. He's going to have it if he plays. They're saying he's getting work in and he's getting closer to playing. He's ran 29 routes per week so far in the regular season, so he's had a very large role in this team. In the playoffs, he's played about 6-7 quarters, 3 catches on 6 targets, just 59 yards, and a total of 45 routes is behind right now for 4th on this team, or at least through those 2 games, was behind Leonard Fournette and the 2 starting wide receivers. So still good usage. He'll have a positive 14% matchup if he plays against Ward, who's allowed 0.88 yards per cover route. Now, Antonio Brown has played in the Super Bowl against the Packers. That was his rookie season. So you've had a couple of veterans on this team. Gronk, Brady, of course, in the Super Bowls, and then you've had Antonio Brown very quietly has played in a Super Bowl. And obviously he's up there for the big game and the big moments. And he's had some massive moments downfield. Again, Brady number 1 in air yards this year. So Antonio Brown, if he plays and I know that he's healthy, this maybe is a little bit less of a, I don't really like the matchup and stuff like that. It's more so I got to see what this health looks like. If we're saying that, it's kind of looking like maybe he's only 50%, maybe he's going to be a decoy out there because they just like him being on the field for 15 routes instead of Scotty Miller or Tyler Johnson. So that's what I want to see as the week goes on. Maybe on Friday we'll have a better picture of that because Antonio Brown, there's a lot of upside here. There's a lot of upside for a guy who goes downfield and has had a couple touchdown games and closed the season off with over 100 yards, right? And Tom Brady loves throwing his way, and Tom Brady basically begged this team to go out and sign him and really demanded this team to go out and sign him. And then Antonio Brown's price point right now of just $6,200, there's a lot of upside at that price point. So he's going to probably lean towards a yes for me, but we'll see on Friday after the health status comes out. Now let's get into a couple of more offensive weapons. We can go McCole Hartman, Williams, and Brate. We can take these 3 guys on right now. We can start with McCole Hartman, who he's going to be a no right now for me at this price point. And this is assuming that Sammy Watkins plays. So if Sammy Watkins is ruled out, Demarcus Robinson is currently in the COVID protocol, but he does not have COVID. He was a close contact with another offensive lineman, a center on this team. And as long as they don't test positive or anything like that, they will be back and ready to play. So that's just kind of just like something else to throw out there just to keep an eye on. But if all goes as planned, Demarcus Robinson will play. They're saying that they're optimistic Sammy Watkins will play in this game. If that's the case, if Sammy Watkins returns after his Super Bowl heroics last year, and he actually, for a guy who runs a lot of routes, goes out there and run routes, there's just not that much more routes to go for a McCole Hartman. Now, he's ran 50 routes in the postseason. That's 4th on this team. But keep in mind, Demarcus Robinson did not play last week. They've only played 2 games so far. He's also ran 20 or more routes in 4 out of the last 5 games, but you have to break that apart a little bit because one of those games was the final week of the season where they didn't have a lot of starters out there. So that's an easy one, right? That's an easy one to run some routes in. And then another one of those weeks was not last week. That's a surprising thing. There was no Demarcus Robinson last week, and he only ran 16 routes, right? He only runs 16 routes, as you can see right here. Now, why is that the case? I mean, Byron Pringle just ran a lot more routes. They went with Byron Pringle over him. You could also say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire returned to the game, but Byron Pringle last week was the number 3 wide receiver on the team, running 31 routes. So that is kind of concerning that they opted to say, you know what, we know that McCole Hartman's skill set is this and this, but we want Byron Pringle more of a possession receiver and a guy who can also go downfield over McCole Hartman, who's kind of not a one-trick pony necessarily only, but more so his skill is going downfield when we already have that kind of covered with Mr. Tyreek Hill. So Hartman at his current price point, unless Watkins is out, probably, and I'd also have to see Robinson out because we saw last week he didn't get the bump with Robinson out. I need to see both of those guys out to really have an interest. So I'm not going to be there in Hardman just yet. Now, next up, we can go to Darrell Williams, who in the championship game with CHE back saw all the usage. He played less snaps, 30 to CHE's 32, but he saw 13 carries on the ground, played well, 52 overall yards and a touchdown. But not only did he see less snaps, just barely, but he also saw less routes run. Now, he saw 1 target, but he saw 12 routes run to CHE's 19. I think that can change this week. He's going to also have that positive 10% run blocking advantage against Tampa Bay's regular season number 11 run defense. Now, at this current stage as it stands, man, it's going to be an ownership game. He's an $1,800 price difference off of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The ownership, I think, is going to be coming in pretty similar, if not maybe a little bit lower on Williams. If that's going to be the case, I will side with Williams over Clyde Edwards-Helaire come Friday, but we have to see what that ownership looks like. Next up is Cameron Brate, who's kind of just had a resurgence in the playoffs right now. I don't know if it's using Gronk as a blocker more. I don't know if he's getting tired and these cold games are wearing him out a little bit as the season goes on, but he's seen 17 targets on 50 routes in the postseason. He's number 5 on Tampa Bay in routes. He's number 3 in targets and number 3 in yards right now in these 3 postseason games. That's crazy. And the elite thing for Cameron Brate is that he's seeing 42% slot snaps right now, which is fantastic. But here's the issue with Cameron Brate, the price point. He's now $4,800. So now you have to get those 5 targets or those 4 targets out of him, assuming he doesn't score a touchdown. So if you get those 4 or 5 targets out of him, okay, now you're having 30 yards or so, but he's now $4,800. So 6-7 points don't get it done for you because you can pay for a kicker for a similar cheaper price point. You can pay for a defense for a similar cheaper price point. So now you need these 10-point games out of Cameron Brate. And I hate to break it to you, no pun intended there. Brate and break, I guess they're close enough, right? We can let that one go. But only 7 fantasy points is my projection for him. So I'm not that high on Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate's leaning closer to a no than a maybe for me. We're gonna have to see where the ownership comes in. He's currently picking up some ownership to the extent where I'm like, okay, I can probably get away from this ownership on Cameron Brate. He doesn't have that high of an A dot overall. He's very good after the catch, very sneaky after the catch, and I like that overall slot percentage, but he's kind of priced for what his role is on this team now at this point. So early on right now, we could actually end up going and making him a no, and we can see what the ownership looks like as the week goes on. Next up, we get into Sammy Watkins and the kickers, and Sammy Watkins is going to be one of my favorite plays if he is indeed going to play, and we know that he's healthy. If they're going to say, oh, he's in and he's going to be limited to like 12 routes, and then we have to kind of break that down and figure out what that means. If they say like 15 routes run or 25 or red zone usage, then we get away from it. But he's so cheap. He's $4,200. He's optimistic to play, like I said. He has not played since week 16, but he has ran. He's been usage. He's a high usage player, and people just kind of forget about him because he's just kind of been scoring like, he gets like 40 or 50 yards a game. He doesn't pop off for touchdowns and stuff like that. But he's been running 34 plus routes in each of his last 5 healthy games. He'll likely see Carlton Davis, who allows 1.47 yards per cover out this year, has basically shut down Michael Thomas, and then that's kind of about it. He's been very good this year, Carlton Davis. Don't get me wrong. People might want to credit him for shutting down Adams earlier this year when Adams came back from an injury and shutting down some other players, but there's bracket coverage on Adams against Tampa Bay, and they brought pressure that got there. So it's more so the defensive scheme, but Carlton Davis has been very good this year. He lines up 65% of the time on the left side of the field. If Sammy Watkins plays, he'll be all over the field. He goes into the slot, he'll be on the left side, he'll be on the right side. So Sammy Watkins at this cheap of a price point, attaching him to somebody like Patrick Mahomes and allowing you to pay up for some of those more expensive players, whatever it might be. Yes, I like that a lot. Sammy Watkins is a strong yes for me. He's probably one of the 1 or 2 best value plays right now if we're talking about guys below 5K. Now the kickers, I have them both as nose. So what do you mean you have them both as nose? Look, they project out decently, but here's the thing, and I write it right here. Kickers are fine to get to, but there's only a prop of 3.5. So Vegas is saying 3.5 total field goals in this game. You think more or less. So even if it gets to 4, you better see like 3 or 4 of those coming from one team. I think both of these teams are going to opt to go for it a lot more. So if it's like 4th and 3 from their opponent's 40-yard line or their opponent's 35, they're going to go for it a lot more in this game. Bruce Arians already said we're going balls to the walls. And you already have seen so far this year, left and right, Andy Reid's not kicking field goals. Even if they're on the 20-yard line and 2nd and 8 or 3rd or 4th and 8, they're not going for any field goals. They're going for it. So that's one thing working against the kickers. Already a low field goal prop with 2 aggressive coaches that really all season long don't want to be going for it and going for field goals. You have Tom Brady last week saying, hey, let's not kick this field goal. Let's not do this right now. Let's go out there and throw a Hail Mary. And then they throw a Hail Mary and they score the touchdown because Kevin King and the Packers defense and Pettin got fired, all that stuff. Don't get me started on all that. But that's what happens, right? That's what happens, that these teams are going to be aggressive. So that's one thing against the kickers. But the second thing against the kickers is it's a higher total games. Higher total games are much worse for kickers. What's that? What do you mean? They're going to kick more extra points and stuff like that. No, that's bad, right? If it's a higher total game, that means more people are scoring touchdowns. The ball's moving down the field more. So some of these guys like Sammy Watkins in their price range and some of these other guys in the price range are picking up more receptions and picking up more yardage, and they're just passing up the kickers, right? The kickers having like 4 extra points in the game and having 4 points, maybe a field goal at 7 points, doesn't matter when the total's 56 and a bunch of guys around them are scoring like 11, 12, 13 points. So as of right now, like if these guys are going to be like 5 or 10% owned, sure, get to some of them. Hope that they hit their 10-point ceiling, which is not that great either. But they're going to be like 20% owned. I have no interest in the kickers at all this week. They project out decently. They project out for like around 8.5 to 9 points for me. But again, no interest in the kickers as of right now based on a lot of different factors that we just discussed. Now we start to get into some of the value plays, if you will, and that is Scotty Miller, Rob Gronkowski, and the Buccaneers. We can start with Scotty Miller at 3,400. I have no interest if indeed Antonio Antonio Brown is back. Now, if Brown is out in this game, well, then you're going to be seeing him start and play probably against Ward, that is Scotty Miller. Now, Scotty Miller has seen 0 snaps out of the slot this postseason, so that's somewhat concerning. You're not really having that upside, but we know what he is. He's an outside speed receiver, and you're hoping for the big touchdown like you saw last week at the end of the half. Last week, he got the start, and he caught 2 of his 3 targets, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Basically, that touchdown at the end of the game, or at the end of the first half, was his only real usage in that game from a volume standpoint. And here's the other thing that's a concern. He's kind of expensive. So even if Antonio Brown doesn't go, he's kind of expensive because he only ran 20 routes last week. Tyler Johnson, the number 4 receiver, the rookie out there, I guess the number 5 receiver when Antonio Brown is healthy, ran 11 routes. So 20 routes to 11 routes, that's not that wide of a difference. I would have rather seen like 30 routes out of Scotty Miller, give him that full-time Antonio Brown type role. They didn't do it. They gave Tyler Johnson enough snaps as well because Scotty Miller kind of is somewhat of that one-trick pony. So Miller at this price point isn't in play for me. I like some other guys, like next up, Rob Gronkowski, who's a yes. He has a positive 57% matchup against Wilson, he has 6 inches and 23 pounds over this week. Now I get it. Cameron Brady's been playing a lot better. I like Cameron Brady over Rob Gronkowski from just a projection standpoint, but you have to factor in the price point. It's an $1,800 difference in the price point. Look, Rob Gronkowski has only had 2 receptions on 6 playoff targets so far this year for 43 yards. One of them was a screen last week that went for a lot of yards after the catch. I get it. He hasn't looked great, but he's running right now 21 routes per playoff game. He's only averaging 1.02 yards per cover route, but he's running the routes. He's getting the usage, and he's a cheap player. Everything that you've seen the past couple of weeks is going to deflate his ownership, but his price point's coming down. So the ownership and the price point's coming down. The usage is still there from a routes run standpoint. He had a quality game last time that he's faced the Chiefs as well, and now he's playing in a warm stadium in the Super Bowl where they're going to go balls to the walls as one of the only guys that has experience under this pressure in the moment. So give me Rob Gronkowski at that buy low price point. He is a yes for me at $3,000. It's not just a name anymore, right? Yes, I know that the big name is going to be there. You might think that that picks up ownership, but right now, Rob Gronkowski, I currently only have Mr. Gronkowski at 14% ownership. On a showdown slate, that is very, very low. So give me Gronk. Next up, we can start to get into some of these defenses. We can talk about the Chiefs and the Bucs defense first, starting with the Bucs defense. They're both in play for me. They're both kind of like if you have this one spot left, I'd rather get a position player. I much prefer getting to Gronk or Sammy Watkins if he plays. Much prefer that over these defenses. But if you're down here and you want to get a little bit different, the defenses might come in, like 15, 20% on somewhere around there, probably 15, 16% on. Tampa Bay ranks 5th overall in the regular season, and Kansas City ranks 16th overall. So let's quickly just run down the ranks, right? Tampa Bay was number 11 versus the run, number 22 in tackling, number 8 in pass rush, and number 3 in coverage. And then Kansas City was number 23 versus the run, number 19 in tackling, number 22 in pressure, and number 10 in coverage. Let me tell you right now, we'll do a sneak peek for the defenses behind the screen or behind the curtain on Patreon. Again, if you want to check it out down below, a bunch of tools to help you win more money to increase your chances of winning an ROI, return on investment. It's linked down below, patreon.com/Sal_Vetri_. I currently have the Chiefs as a better defensive play. For the price point right now, they're basically similar. The Chiefs are cheaper, and I have the Chiefs for a half a point more in my projection. So give me the Chiefs defense over Tampa Bay if you're choosing. Again, they're both in play, but the Chiefs over Tampa Bay if you're choosing between the defenses. I personally think that they're okay, but I don't prefer the defenses all that much. But in higher total games, you might be saying, the defenses, I shouldn't get to them. Actually, if it's not a low-scoring game, you don't want it to be in the mid-range to play defense. You want it to be higher scoring. The more pass attempts means the more chances at pressure rates, means the more chances at fumbles, at sacks, at pick sixes, all these types of things. Now we get down to a couple more value plays, and one that's going to stand down and be probably somewhat polarizing and low owned this week. Ronald Jones at $2,200. Ronald Jones has now had about a month to get healthy. These 2 weeks off. He came back. He's had a month to get even healthier since he was kind of limited in that divisional round game. Conference championship, they gave him more usage, but he just looked absolutely terrible, and he has no passing game upside. But if you're going to tell me that Ronald Jones is $2,200, and I know how good Fournette has been in the postseason, and they're going to keep giving Fournette touches because he has that role in the passing game. But Ronald Jones over the last 2 games, right? Look at the last 2 games in the postseason since he returned. 23 carries on the ground for 78 yards. Not good. 3.4 yards per attempt, but just the volume. 23 carries to Leonard Fournette's 29. That's a 44% to 54% split. I think that's a lot closer than people think, right? That's very, very close. If you're looking like if there's just a 1 or 2 touch difference there, they're basically 50-50. Now the big difference is in the passing game. Ronald Jones just 10 routes run, but that's not his game, to Leonard Fournette's 47 routes run and 13 targets to Ronald Jones, 1 target the last 2 games. That's the big difference. But the regular season, Ronald Jones was averaging 16.7 opportunities per game. So recency bias is going to say go to Leonard Fournette. But Leonard Fournette's over $5,000 more expensive than Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is currently my number 1 value play this week. I don't even have him projected out that highly. He's just so fucking cheap. I have him projected for like 8 fantasy points, but that's why he's popping off as my number 1 value as of right now. Ronald Jones is a yes for me. He's not a yes for me because I like him. I like Leonard Fournette more than Ronald Jones relatively like for the whole season. Before the season started, I liked Leonard Fournette a lot more, but it's the fact that the price point right now and the ownership is going to be low. I think it might come up, but it's low right now on Ronald Jones. Yes, you're probably going to need the rushing touchdowns, or you just need one big run, right? Or you just need him to have 10 carries for 80 yards, and that probably gets you there at this cheap of a price point. Or you can have him get his 11 carries for 50 yards and then a touchdown, and now you're really sitting pretty. So you probably need the touchdown or the one big run, but I'll take my chances there if I think that these last 2 weeks, the work on the ground has been relatively similar, and now he has a matchup against a bottom third of the league Chiefs run defense. I do not have him projected as a massive scorer, but it's the point per dollar value that makes me like him. We can now finish it off with some guys who are just going to be on the slate but not that interesting. Demarcus Robinson, again, he's in that COVID protocol. He's in play for me because he does run routes. He's ran 31 routes in the divisional round. He only saw 2 targets. He's not that highly involved. He's more so of a good blocker in general, and he just gets his job done. And he has run 30 or more routes in 7 of his last 8 games. It's a neutral spot if he starts and plays and gets out of the COVID protocol against Jamal Dean. He's just kind of there. I'd prefer Ronald Jones. And you got a couple of guys that I just don't have interest in as we close out the slate. Final 2 guys in the slate. Le'Veon Bell, he might play this week. He missed the conference championship in the divisional round. Even with no Clyde Edwards-Helaire out there, he only saw 2 touches for 6 yards on 16 snaps. He only ran 7 routes for 1 target so far in the postseason. Now expect somewhere between 0 and 3 touches even if he does play. He's only ran a total of 26 routes over his last 4 total games, and that's with no Clyde Edwards-Helaire out there, so no interest at all in Le'Veon Bell. And the final guy is Nick Keiser. I teased about him in the beginning. No interest in Nick Keiser. He's ran 5 total playoff routes, and he has had 1 target. On the season, he's ran 33 total routes in the regular season. That's 3.5 routes per game. Not good when you factor in that he's just averaging 6.3 yards per target. He's averaging 10 targets or 1 target per game, 10 targets this year in his 10 games played. Not good. No interest in Nick Keiser either. So that is where we're at with the best picks Wednesday, kind of early look at this. We're kind of deep diving it. I hope you got all the information smacked into your head. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, do all those things. We will be back Friday with our final takes and our final picks for all these guys. Then we will also be streaming on Sunday as well, so be sure to like, subscribe, and that notification bell so you know when we go live. I really appreciate you tuning into this video. If you want to get a free money bonus up to $500 on SuperDraft, my top SuperDraft play this week to start you off, we'll give you another one on Friday and another one on Sunday. But my top play right now is Travis Kelce. Promo code SAL, SAL, gets you that free money bonus when you sign up for SuperDraft. That is promo code SAL, SAL, lets them know you're coming from me. And if you want to get a free ticket to play on SuperDraft, so you get signed up, you get a nice little bonus, but then you also get a free ticket. Just leave a review on the Sal Vetri show, and then you leave a review, 5 stars, say something nice, takes literally 30 seconds of your time. You can do it as I'm saying this right now. Then screenshot that review and send it to me via Twitter, send it to me via my email, whatever it might be, Instagram, whatever it might be, just send it to me with your SuperDraft name. Thank you so much for tuning in. Patreon has some tools down below that are going to help you increase your chances of banking some money on Super Bowl night. Somebody out there win that $1 million all for yourself. You all rock. I'll see you all in the next one. We have NBA content going out, MMA content going out, so maybe I'll see some of you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in the Friday and Sunday content for the motherfucking Super Bowl. See you then, gang. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your day.